Okay, hello, we're live. Today I'm going to be talking with Brother Lee. Lee's in Cambodia, and we're going to talk about first principles, something that Lee knows a lot about, and we're going to talk about metaphysics, physics, and how that all ties into GPMS and the overall ascension, which is all very beautiful things. So if you want to take it away, Lee. Most people probably haven't heard of first principles, despite how simple they are. But I know that they can assist people in moving forward in this now.
Thank you, brother. Assuming you can hear me okay. What I'm going to say is let's try and take some of the complexity out of all of this. First principles, metaphysics, these ideas, they're more aligned to there's a thing about information. We can talk to information. We can have a lot of information, philosophies and ideas and all of this, but really information is fruitless without. So embodiment being not just acting, not just knowing something, but actually knowing it in So when we talk to, when I talk to principation, core value, core virtue, what I speak to is basically your own truth. What is your truth? What core truth do you hold true to yourself? You can talk to metaphysics, and we can talk to a lot of the other vibratory energetic patterns, but they all base on purity and balance. So when we bring that back inside, core principle must be purity, harmony, and balance. So foundational principles, value is what we really put it down, what's important. So it's a redefinition of what is important. In looking outside, looking at social culture and national identities, all of these are identities of the self, the small s. They individualize, they create separations, they create concepts which are perplex individuals, they create confusion. The opposite of all of that is grace and ease and harmony, which is exactly the opposite to what everybody's grown up with. So interesting when you ask somebody what their truth is, most haven't got a clue. Most have never asked that question to themselves. Most are in a position where they not experiential. What society believes is true, what others believe is true, what is society, what is the cultural. But that's not true. Your truth is inside. So these core values and these core principles internally to create a foundation of strength to progress forward. Again, I'm just a quick introduction. A slight overview where we are. The information is superficial. Knowing. One of the beautiful ways of looking at this is Gnostic versus idiotic. Gnostic is inner knowing. Idiotic is existential teaching. So anything that comes from the outside literally is the opposite of gnosis or internal knowing. Was called the base etymology of the word is idiosis or idiotic. So again, in these two, we can see that there is a difference between what you develop innately, what you know and hold as a core value, and what's given to you externally as a value you must hold. They don't line up. But I'll leave it at that for now, brother. See what you make of that, and we'll move forward.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Lee. I think maybe I have to mute while you're speaking. Bonnie said there's an echo, and that seemed to fix it. But yeah, I know what you're saying, Lee, and it is really interesting in my experience to like sharing GPMS with people, is that like some people, they have this inner knowing that this reality makes sense, and they just like see it, and like you've seen with people in the Philippines and Thailand, elsewhere that you've been, people with their hearts open to beautiful things accept this reality as being true, and it comes down to exactly what you're pointing at. And some people might have these layers of things in front of that, but truly in our hearts we all know that beautiful things are the true reality that we can experience here. And especially for us awakened ones, that's what we came here to create. And what's so beautiful about GPMS is that it's all inclusive. You know, we're enabling everyone's project, everyone's solutions, everyone's gifts to be shared with the world fully. You know, no restriction. It's instant funding, complete funding, comfort for all. And so it's important that we talk about first principles as this thing that might be getting in the way for other people hearing this message, especially for the ones of us that already understand GPMS, have already consented, and that are sharing it with others, so that, you know, the ones of us, when we're sharing it, can understand what the other person's experiencing and where their limiting beliefs come from, and how to kind of interact with that.
It is fascinating. There's so many levels of consciousness, and they're all perfect. There is this concept of limiting beliefs, but that's all frequential. So there are frequencies within that unlock as you move through, as you strip away and release what the beliefs were, all of what you think you were, all of the conceptual thoughts and the indoctrination and the teachings that you've been given. As you release them, because they are of no use, they are literally of no use, but people hold on to them as if they're sort of part of their body. They're like a limb, but they're not. They can all be shed. And as you let go of these superficial layers, which are very real, you know, we've all experienced them. They were very real, but then reality changes and the truth changes. And as we become malleable, as we allow ourselves to move through these without holding on and creating friction and distortion, these layers are shed and the frequency rises, and that allows access to more consciousness or more innate knowing, less belief, more of an internal knowing, and it becomes more concentrated. So one of the ways of looking at it would be that all of the external is like food coloring in water. You drop the food coloring in and it disperses out. And all of that dispersing out is sort of pollution, toxic. It's dilution. It's taking the core and diluting it. So in every aspect of life, we've seen dilution. And the idea is to come back to concentration, pull the purity back out of the dilution by releasing the dilution. Now, in the process of doing that, many face friction. They create their own self-turmoil. There's a sense of a loss of self, but it's not. It's a gaining of self, big S, not little s. So there's a holding on to, again, in many levels of consciousness, in the awakened ones all the way down, it doesn't matter. This is a systemic macro image that's based on micro experiences, and they're all through. So as we witness others releasing and the struggle to release, we know that they are rising in their frequency, and the strength of the embodiment, their own internal core power, their value will increase. But it feels like it's the opposite. And this is that fundamental approach. One of the simple questions that I used to give to people is, if you looked at it as a program where you have one of two ways to go, one of two choices. Your base gate, the base choice is, what are you? Are you the energy of creation? Are you God? Are you creation itself? Or are you not? And if you can start to cajole or can put that into yourself as a base concept, am I more or am I less? I am not. However you wish to see it. That base reflection point for every action that you take. Did I take it from the highest? Did I take it from the I am, or did I take it from the I am not? Was it love? Was it fear? Was it Again, it depends on how each will go through these things. But that base gate allows for reflection back upon cause and effect. And inside all of this, it redefines what's important. If one can take the base concept of am I more or am I less and start to work on that basis, then the more creates a smoother path. There's less restriction, there's more confirmation, it's graceful. The am I less creates a more frictional path. It's like stones in the river. It creates pathways that move in distortions. So by the cause, by your choice and the effect of that cause, you can define the pathways. And inside doing this, it allows for not so much of a deep metaphysical or deep philosophical belief system. It's just experiment day by day. What if I do this? And what if I don't do that? And what if I try that instead of this? And and forgetting about the external social critique or the stigmas that may be attached to doing something, the words that others throw at you and others' judgments. These have got to be released too. So again, in this coming back into the self, big S, simple choices can be made which are different to conceptual choices that society may have given, and they may lead to more beautiful outcomes than one may envision or have envisaged prior. And that gives a sense of big self confirmation that this is the right path. And this core value, this core truth becomes embodied through action, through small steps, not massive, huge ones. You can do all sorts of different things to confirm this to yourself. Am I God? Am I not? Am I am not. Am I more than I know, or am I less than I think? All of these are just very, very simple steps that enable ones to find their core value, their core truth. And ultimately what that boils down to is virtue and integrity, morality and honesty and honor, all of the good things that experientially didn't get us anywhere. They are the ones now that will progress the quickest. Carrying the highest virtue you can for yourself, not for others, for yourself. Speaking the truth, your honest truth to yourself. Meticulous thought, allowing everything to be, but not following any of it because none of it is you. And making the highest choice in the moment for yourself. This is more aligned to the I am as opposed to the I am not. And this will open up a large amount of frictionless grace in the short term, which will enable much more in the longer term for the embodiment, which is the truth, the embodiment of your truth, not another's truth, not an existential truth, not something that reality has told you to believe is true, but your truth. And once you embody your truth, nothing can take that from you. And nothing can impact you. Nothing can touch you. You have divine authority because it's pure. These are opposite to the distortions, to what we've all witnessed and what we've all experienced. These are the moral choices. These are virtuous. These are not immoral and non-virtuous. These are not what society teaches us to do, turn a blind eye to those suffering whilst trying to make something for ourselves. That's not moral. GPMS then. GPMS becomes a moral choice based on an individual concept or an individual truth, not experiential, not existential, not a, what about them, how are we going to do that, but based on a purity. What are you? Are you or are you not? Should you be free? Are you of infinite value? Is the value inside or is it outside? Should everybody be free? Is everybody equal? Is everything connected? Are we or are we not? And these things all align into GPMS, which becomes the most moral, the most virtuous, the highest choice one can make as an individual. It doesn't conceptually take into account the rest because they will make their choices based on the same process. And once we've undertaken this process, which is what humanity is doing right now, then everybody releases their belief that they are less. Everybody releases the indoctrinations that they've been told that they are worthless and hopeless and meaningless and pitiful. this isn't the case. These are sparks of creation, every single one, more powerful than they could ever believe, walking around as if they're not. So this is where we talk to first principle, or I do anyway, on a metaphysics level. We can take it into longer words and we can take it into philosophy, but we don't need to. We can keep it very, very, very simple. But there you go, a little bit of a monologue, brother.
No, that's great. I love how you can fully explain things, like that with and it seems like people appreciate it too. Because yeah, it's really interesting for me, because I was, involved with GPMS before the website even launched, and I've been going through this process continually, what you've been describing, because there's always more, it's like as you achieve a new level of embodying virtue, there's something else that comes along. There's a new challenge, there's a new something. And recently I've met some beautiful brothers and sisters here in Australia, and they just get it. And it's so beautiful, and they want to share it with other groups that are doing grassroots, humanitarian work in this part of the world, and it's just so cool to talk about it. If they have questions come up, I don't have any doubt within myself about this reality, and I just kind of start talking to see how I can explain one aspect of GPMS to someone, and it just like comes out, or Michael ends up on the phone and he has a way to explain it to someone, and we're all having a good time, creating the new world, and envisioning how we can create it, and embodying that, as in unity in a small group physically is really quite fun now, and at the same time, yeah, it's like you said, people are going through this process, and it's really quite fun to be like playing the game where we're constantly progressing forward, as so is everybody, and so as we're sharing GPMS with people organically in whatever way it happens for each individual, like Lisa and Dan, and it's like I love seeing how other people are going about it, and you in the Philippines, and it's just so cool. The brothers in India getting 1,000 consents a week, and that's just going to keep growing as more and more people see it, and yeah, it's just so beautiful, because as it keeps growing, people get more and more ready. Like things are shifting in the world so fast. Like I've met this awesome young man who lives in this part of the world, and he was reading to me that someone just won the Nobel Peace Prize for creating some kind of free energy. Now, it's not the most simplistic thing like magnetics and stuff that we've heard about, but it works, and this stuff is being released to the public, and as well as many other things, that are just like in people's faces, and it's like the information is now coming so fast at people that they are actually being forced inside to see like what do they really want to experience, what do they really want to believe is possible in this external world, and first they have to go within and question themselves, and that's a process for people in so many different ways, with different cultures and languages and experiences happening on this very diverse planet. So yeah, it's really a cool time.
When you look at well, there's lots of interesting things when you look at the metaphysics, when you look at the patterning, when you look at the biorhythm of each individual's progress. It's actually a pattern that's followed by everybody else. So we think that everybody's doing things differently, but they're all doing the same thing differently at different levels, and each level is the same. It's kind of funky, and most people will recognize this inside what their own experiences are, even without metaphysical knowledge or philosophical biorhythmic approach to the game. But at each level that one progresses through, the first part of the level is doubt. So I tend to look at it like this, like that spiral, like DNA. And you've got what's called as you open up into a new level, you start off at the bottom, and that's full of doubt. And then it goes into this rarefaction where it spreads out. And that's where all your questions are. There's all of the doubtful questions in each level. I don't know. I'm not happy. I don't know. What about that? What about this? Can I do that? I'm not sure about this. Who am I? Who are they? All of these questions that cause the doubt. And once we start to answer the questions, this comes back around again. And in the top level is strength. So in the bottom level is kind of like a weakness or a doubt, self-doubt, not sure, uncertainty. And in the top is assuredness and certainty, and all of this and all the questions in that level have been answered to a point where one feels comfortable. And then it continues. It goes into the next one where the next level of doubt comes in. And that's got a load of questions. And in our experiences, most people can reflect back upon events that they've undergone or undertaken in their life that was pivotal or life-changing. Most people don't reflect back on the stuff that wasn't so pivotal, but still had a life-changing event. And all of these are linked. They all move in to the same process. They all start off with unsure, lots of questions, sure, then into a new level. And the universal dynamic progresses people through this with nudges or guidance, universal guidance, signposts, and other things that may happen up until a point where there's a slap. So if you're not actually progressing through the level and you need to on a soul level, then you'll get a slap and it will push you into the next level. And then everything's chaos again. And then you work through it and it becomes okay and you become secure again. So inside the metaphysics or inside the micro of that, there's also a macro. Everything is macro. So it doesn't matter whether you're looking at the energetic content of a hydrogen atom and how it progresses through compounding to a higher complexity atom structure. Atom, I don't like to use that word, but we'll keep it there for now. Or you're looking at the existential experience that we all embody as a energetic representation of source energy, animating the human suit. The process is the same, and it's also the same on a collective level, and it's the same on a galactic level. There is a process whereby there's distortion, which becomes purity, and there's distortion, which becomes purity, and this continues, and this goes forwards. What we learn inside contemplation and concentration, recognition, changing the way we are, is that purity, these levels actually work on faith and trust. And the doubts and the questions don't need to be answered if you have faith and you trust yourself. So you can move through these levels without the doubt. You can go straight to strength and straight to trust. Once you have embodied your core, concentrate. Once you trust your heart fully and you have let go of the mind as a conceptual organ, you allow it to be the slave, even though it wants to be the master. The heart becomes the master because that's the core. That's where your value is. The heart doesn't question. The heart doesn't care. The heart doesn't worry. The heart hasn't got anxiety. All of these are creations. They're stories that are emotionally impactful. When the emotions don't impact anymore and the heart is allowed to rule the roost, then these levels become, you just trust. You move into that position of trust, but you can't get there superficially. It's not something that you can do and say, I'm there. It's something you actually are. It has to be embodied. It can't be thought about. It has to be complete. So there is this idea of bypassing and spiritual this and spiritual. It just doesn't work. You can't. There's a concept of it, but in reality, your energy will reflect distortion or disharmonics. So in each that carry a superficial nature, or in each that carry information but hasn't been embodied, there is a level of distortion and disharmony, which is perfectly fine for that level of consciousness. You know, it's something that will be moved through. There's no fault in that, but it is evident. It's not hidden. It can't be hidden. It must be worked through. And collectively, those fear levels and those density levels are being worked through on an individual level, albeit many are in confusion, many are in doubt, many are in states of disorientation, discombobulation, distortion, disharmony. But the universe is a orchestra of trillions of instruments, and every instrument must play in harmony. You can't be out of tune to be in the galactic, the polyphony, the symphony of the galaxies can't be out of tune. So the physics of creation itself is allowing for disbalance or disharmony to become harmonized. And that's inside each soul's progression or procession through these layers. So it doesn't matter what people try to do, say right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. There is only perfection, and each are tuning themselves. And the way that's done is by releasing falsity, is by releasing untruth, is by becoming moral, virtuous internally, not externally. That's the service to self section. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it's purifying. It's not selfish. It's not selfish at the expense of another. It's amplifying your own energy to a point where you become selfless. So the selfish nature of service to self that isn't damaging anybody else because it's from a virtuous place, not an immoral place, brings about a service to others, which is exemplary. It becomes something that is second nature, and you can't not do it because you know what you are, not who you are. You don't need to know who you are. Who you are makes no difference. What you are. Are you creation itself, or are you not? Who you are doesn't matter. Who you are is little self. This is big self. So inside all of this is what we're witnessing, and therefore ones cannot see GPMS yet. Many can't, because it's like a neon sign and they can't see neon. They are unable to conceptualize and see freedom as a reachable place, because all they've ever known is a prison, and that prison is in the mind. Once that opens up to the heart, and it will, the heart shows a different way, and all of a sudden freedom is a choice. Then you can see GPMS. Complication then comes in because the mind isn't sure. And that bottom bit of doubt, the mind isn't sure, and the mind thinks about every reason why not. All of those are external. They're nothing to do with the self, and the virtuous choice and the most moral choice would be to choose absolute freedom for everybody without fear. Fears and doubts obviously come in because this is what the mind wants to create to keep a sense of little self. Little self doesn't exist. Well, it does. Let me just give you that one as well, brother, what existence means. Existing, existence, the etymology of existence is out of the self. Out of the self. Transcendence is proximity to the self, big S. So existence is an external concept. It's a reality that's not real. Transcendence, proximity to the self, is where the core values are and the core truths lie. And that's much more real than existence. So this is what we're having this fight with, this not a fight, this dance, energetic dance with all of these concepts and beliefs as if they're real, when in reality they don't hold any reality except in the mind of the believer. Again.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. And yeah, while you're speaking, it's interesting to see like the view of how like GPMS is the global people's monetary system, but it is also simplified natural law and divine law, universal law. And so when you arrive at a place within yourself where you have a connection to your inner self or to the creator or both, you can see, like that reflected in the natural environment. And that's why I see the people in India and the Philippines and Thailand can see GPMS so quickly, is because they live much more close to nature than the Western world does. The Western world is really bizarre, but the ones in the West that can see GPMS, like they can see the huge contrast, like they're sharing it, and it's like it's like a really huge contrast. And also one thing that I was seeing is how like there's this link between technology and the nature of the universe and the nature of this planet, to where, you know, everybody or most people in the West have access to the internet and to various technologies that make life more comfortable and efficient. And there's a whole lot more to come, you know. And when with GPMS, what we're doing is we're creating money to fund the technologies and all the benevolent projects for humanity, and we're giving every man, woman, and child instant abundance, instant comfort, and we all get together and we create this beautiful world for everyone. And then so so we have this transcendence. It leads to like some kind of experiential reality that isn't necessarily what was the word you were using other than transcendence? Sorry.
Existential. Existence.
Yeah. So instead of having an existence on the planet, we really have an experiential reality from a point of transcendence. And yeah, it really is so simple, you know, but it's fun to like see all the ways that it's working. And again, if you haven't been to the GPMS website, go and check it out. Close all the other tabs on your computer, you know, and just read it. You know, take a deep breath, go outside beforehand if you need to, because people or the social medias and the technology in a lot of ways is designed to keep people's attention span very short, you know. But to sit down and read the GPMS website, you're reading about a new reality that we can co-create together, where the old reality completely disappears. You know, it's kind of like if you had an emotional tantrum as a child, you know, that's like a whole nother reality, a whole nother world compared to what you experience now. And people agreeing to the current system is just gonna fall like that. Like that reality just falls away when we agree to create the new one together. And yeah, people are wanting it more and more and more as the old does what it does, you know.
The old is built on lies, obfuscations of truth, malfeasance, disinformation, misinformation. It's been that way for millennia. It's built on lies and it's held up on belief. The only reason this savagery is continuing is because the majority of people believe that it's life, because that's what they've been told. It's existence. That's purely all it is. It's survival. The humanity, and I doff my cap to both, not just the slave masters, but also the slaves. The degree to which the distortion has been input into the human collective is incredible. I doff my cap to those that did that. I think it was, to the extent to which they controlled humanity was incredible, incredibly malevolent, but nevertheless incredible. But the degree to which humanity has adapted to that, to believe it's actually true and real, and maintain that stigma, maintain that figment of illusion, and hold it as real, is also brilliant. It shows how the human spirit, how that divine spark of God could not be extinguished, however hidden it was, and how even though it was so far hidden and everything else was a lie and everything else was malevolent, it still has the power to come back. It still is there. It's not been disappeared. It's not been extinguished. And we're in that place now where I call it a self-correcting code. This spark is igniting in all, and that's creating a self-correction. It's a self-correcting code back to source code, back to purity, back to the truth. The virus is being removed, and inside each, that self-correcting code is running. It can only be denied, and as is the truth of the outside being denied, but this is denied from the inside. And morality, consciousness, physics of the universe, love, harmony, balance cannot be extinguished. They can't be suppressed. They will bring a balance. whilst those hold on to distortion as if that is balance, they will be nudged and guided and assisted to release that. We've been witnessing this for quite a while, Henry, and I know you have too. We're doing it in different places. We're doing it from to different levels of consciousness, and that's all gravy, because I can't do what I do to the people that you speak to, because they are more receptive to you, and this is where we work as a team. So each of us has a role, each of us has a place, each of us has a time, each of us has an audience. Sometimes, sometimes not, but we do, and those audiences are prescribed and divined and delegated because of what we are, and this is what we do. And the more that step into that divine role, the more that are coming online, the more that are releasing superficiality and going into full embodiment, the more that realize superficiality doesn't work. They've tried it. It didn't work, and they're having to come back and relearn what that means. As much as it can create a kick and a fight in the moment, it's okay. Those that are moving through that process will come out of that with a more divine authority, with a divine identity, one of which is core now, non-dilute, absolutely concentrated. And that carries a higher vibration. It carries more power. It carries more co-creational ability because it's now pure. It can create now, it can manifest, and it can affect millions because it's pure, not because it's conceptual, not because I say so, but because it is. And this is that alignment that we're going to see. The energies that we're going through right now are I'm not going to go too deep into this, but it's almost like a reset. We're going back to a place where a lot of what we have experienced didn't happen. So those that are holding on to things as if they're truth, when they didn't actually happen, they won't be able to hold on to them anymore. And this will cause a further shedding. So the alignments that we're going through, the energies that we're going through, the reconnection to the higher frequential grid that so many have been involved in doing their divine task work as a united whole, even though many feel that they're individual in groups, it's all working for the bigger whole. And this is coming to a culmination point now. We haven't got what, when, why. We just know that there is a point where things change. To what degree, we don't know. But one of the big changes will be the release of humanity's reluctance to step outside of the prison. That unity, that communal villagery, that heart-based way, not mentally, but heart-based way, is coming back, because that's where the spark is. And as much as it was dimmed, it never went out. So it will come back, and this is where we fill from. You know that. So this is what the collective are doing at different levels of consciousness. That will allow them to see further. The vanguard or the higher ones, whatever you wish to call it, doesn't make any difference, are formatting the pathway through, which allows the others to follow a much, much quicker speed. We are seeing this extrapolating in a multiplicative way, even though it's not really felt in existence yet. It is in the energies of, and they manifest. So we're in integration periods now, from the massive X flares, the M flares, and all of the work that's been concentrated prior to the 8.8 now gets integrated into reality and manifests into reality. It becomes evident. It will become evident to the point where it is undeniable. Again, I don't know quite in what way that will reveal itself, but it will, to each and the collective as a whole. Now, the difference between the West and the East is more aligned to the community, brother. You know, the East has still got relationships with their community. They still speak. They're still in their hearts, if you will. They still have massive amounts of fear. They're still reverent to the kings and queens because they may get put into crocodile farms. But this is all fear-based. This is terror. This is reigned by terror. The West, not so much terror, as opposed to prideful arrogance. So you've got this arrogance in the West, which leads to pride, and therefore they know better. And in the East, you've got this timidity, but they've still got their hearts open to their collectives. So we are seeing that communal spirit in the East aligning quicker to a concept which still brings about fear, but they've got nowhere else to go. They've tried everything else. They've always been oppressed, or for a long time they've been oppressed and timid, and that's all they know to be. In Thailand, they're just taught to be service people. You know, they're like automatons. You service the tourists, or you service the rich. That's what you do. Of course, this isn't life. That's not living. That's surviving. That's surviving in a servitude. They're serfs, and they're taught to be that. There's nothing wrong with that. But is it their choice, or is it forced upon them? And this is where, again, what GPMS will do is remove those shackles from every individual so that they can make their purer choices. They're not forced to do immoral things, that they can carry out virtuous acts and be rewarded, because in GPMS, you don't get paid by another. You are the value. You pay yourself. So everybody has their own value. It's not a case of somebody else can pay you. Laws of economics and all of these ideas and accountancy, these do no longer exist. They do humanity severe harm. The idea of limitation and scarcity when there is no such thing. This is a concept. It's not the truth. So GPMS unlocks all of this. You pay yourself. You are your own authority. You regain your agency, your ability to make choices that are based on your virtues, not somebody else telling you what you must do, immorally, morally, non-virtuously, or if you do this, you get that. That's not your choice. That's what existence has made you believe was your choice. And it makes you believe that that's freedom, because you have choice. You haven't got choice when it goes against your own moral value. 15,000 a day plus dying of starvation around the world, but you're okay because you're earning $10 an hour, or whatever it is not a moral choice. There's morality within it, and there is nobility within it. But if you had a choice to choose your highest, you would not choose for 15,000 children a day to be dying of starvation. There is a higher choice. And morally, then, there is you are impelled or compelled, if you follow that virtue internally, to make the highest choice available, not one that's partway down, not negotiating a truth, but standing in it. And this is where GPMS has always been, and this is why there's been resistance, because many feel that they can't stand in that higher truth because they have to survive. And I agree, many have to survive up to a point where we give up on the idea of survival and start to live and start to thrive and start to respect each and every one and start to trust ourselves again, because we have no trust. Many have no trust. They have no trust in themselves, no matter of another. And the whole system is designed to cause mistrust. If you can't trust yourself, what can you trust? Every truth that everybody's held has become a falsity, has become a lie in their own lifetimes. What they believed to be true 20 years ago is no longer true. What they believed to be true 2 years ago is no longer true. So how much truth can you hold in here when it proves itself over and over and over not to be true? I mean, again, you need to be acceptant that these lies are lies. Otherwise, you hold on to them as if they're not. But they are lies everywhere. And if your truth cannot be, if you can't be assured that what you think is true, what you do then? Where's your truth if what you think isn't true? Where does it lie? And the answer is deeper. But again, brother, we can go on monologues like this. It'll probably put people off.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always for those that are meant to see it. But also, I wish to add that, like, for myself and from, well, actually talking with people of all kinds of demographics recently, there's beautiful things coming into people's realities to validate the magic, the beauty, the divinity of life itself and the universe, the creation. The creation, creation, yeah. And in that process, people are getting that validation, they're actually starting to have more time with themselves and contemplation, or with conscious communication with the creator, or with angels, or their guidance network. And it's so cool to hear people's experiences, like a lot of the time I don't have to necessarily speak about GPMS, because the person just like sharing their experience in a group or just to me is opening up so much that I can see their field opening, that the time to come for me to share it or someone else to share it to them would just happen perfectly, or whether it's the next day or the next week or whenever. And this is happening in so many ways. Like, it's just amazing. Like, people are having like crazy challenges come up, and then but then they're getting support from others. No, like, people don't want to watch their family, their friends, their community experiencing hardships anymore, especially not alone. And this part of Australia recently experienced huge floods last year, where like whole towns were 2 stories underwater. Power for not many days. Many people passed over and crazy stuff. But like, the people all got together. They helped each other out. They pulled cars out of here and there, and they rescued people, and there was free food in so many places. And also during COVID on this land, people had a great time because they were getting paid by the government. Like, all of a sudden they were just getting money coming in, and they're all gardening together, and they were all supporting each other, and they had a great time. And even even simple things like that shows people that money can just be created out of nothing. There's like another example for people, like, oh, hang on, it was actually better when we couldn't go somewhere because we lived out in nature, and we had money being created out of nothing, giving us all the comforts that we needed. Now it's like, like the world hasn't gone back to being the same that it was. And it's got people kind of thinking.
It was, sorry, brother, just to add to what you're saying, it was fascinating to watch how quickly people would stop and go and do things. But there was a malevolent cause for that, was lockdown, and the concept of being able to remove the rights of humans and just give them a few quid from the scraps from the table to keep them placated. But it did show that money can be printed from nowhere, and it is. That money was and always has been unlimited. It is printed unlimitedly. The ones that control the monetary system, which are not the governments, have full control and full authority and to author as much money as they wish. It is infinite, always has been. The limitation upon it is to create a slave race, and the control mechanisms for that slave race are governments and the worldwide banking institutions. Above the banking institutions is infinite money. The banking institutions have 2 sets of books, and the governments enforce the lower set of books, which says limitation, scarcity, and resource management and economics are all required. They're all lies. They don't need to be required. And the ones above, though, have to maintain those lies and maintain the manipulation of the structural and cultural impact of their decisions by creating fear and blame upon humanity. So all of the things, the so-called things that are going wrong in the world, are the people's fault. They have nothing to do with the people. In fact, most of the things that are being purported to be going on in the world are lies, based on more fear narratives created by the slave masters to control the populace. And the populace look inside a bubble. They look inside here to create a fix. This whole circular thing is the system, and this is owned and created by the few, and there is no fix inside the system. The fix is outside of the system. And but all of the arguments and discussions and debates that are allowed to happen within here. 2 sides, they're not. They're 2 sides of the same thing. The whole thing is the system. There's no heads or tails here. There is the system, which is the coinage. So when we start to see, or when humanity starts to accept science is a lie, scientists lie. Science in its base form doesn't lie, but the scientists do. Medical institutions, medicines, all of these ideas are conceptual, and they are lies. They are based on falsehoods, mistruths, and kill people. The oppression of the system through the monetary systems, where it's a lie. Scarcity and lack is a lie. Ownership of things is a lie. Contractual paper is all that they own. The two-dimensional paper. The material world is that all of the material on this planet is owned and guardianshiped by the humanity. The people own the material. The system owns the paper. And on that paper, they have all the authority of the law that they've created and legalities that they've created and contractual obligations that they've created, which are lies. The whole system is a lie. The governments can continue it through enforcement agencies that they call police. And they claim people are terrorists. And all of these things are lies. They create division and separation. So the whole thing is corrupt, it's malevolent, and its heart was evil. And I will use the word was because it no longer is. The light has removed the majority of the evil. There is just the remnants here, and there is the ripples of energy that remain discordant and disharmonic in the human collective as belief systems. These belief systems must be and will be released. They are separation systems, they are division systems, and they are created malfeasantly and malevolently by the dark controllers to manipulate the minds and the emotions of humanity, who at their core are loving, compassionate, empathetic sparks of creation themselves. They are divine beings, thinking they're not. And this is where the inversions lie. So when we look at GPMS is a system solution. GPMS is not a concept, it is fact. There is no way the system can maintain itself. There is no way it would be allowed to maintain itself once humanity realizes what it has been doing. It will collapse en masse and it will be torn down when humanity realizes what it has done. GPMS is the secondary step. There is no tearing down of it. We don't need to. There is the proper, responsible, moral, virtuous act of choosing to re-envision that said system, because it is actually owned by humanity. All of it. The banking structures, the printing presses, the media, all of the third dimension, all of the matter is owned by humanity, and the paper means nothing. And that's the moral choice that GPMS brings in, to remove the paper. Divine simplified law, do no harm. All of that paper causes harm, all of it. Not one piece of legislation does not cause harm or division. Not one border control, not one passport area, not one piece of statute, article, act, mandate doesn't cause harm. It all does. So the moral and the virtuous choice is to re-envision the system under a divine natural order of do no harm, which supersedes and negates, makes null and void all previous subservient and malevolent decisions. And that's a simple choice that humanity will be faced with, and in different countries they are being faced with. Now, many of the solutions that have been purported are within that area here. They maintain certain aspects of the old system with a belief that they are necessary, and that belief is idiotic. It comes from outside in. It comes from your television and your government and the pamphlets and the indoctrination centers, some call schools, and the temples and the religious structures, and all of these things create that belief for you, and they are not true. You must find your own belief, and that lies within, and inside that creates a choice for you to make. What are you going to do with it? And again, looking at GPMS through real eyes, not eyes that are fake, not eyes that believe the lies, but through your real eyes, through the ones where you're being honest with yourself, not others, yourself. And cajole the idea of the system being malevolent, cajole the idea of it being intrinsically evil. Look around the world and see what it's giving to you, see what it's given to you. It's given to oppression.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the people aren't evil that are operating the system. You know,
No.
It's the people, it's the beings that created the systems a long time ago, and they implement things as they wish, and then humans carry out the actions not fully knowing the intention or the repercussions of the action that they're carrying out. And with GPMS, it's really quite simple in the sense that we're using all of the resources that are already available, such as creation of money, distribution of money, creation of resources, distribution of resources that are already here on the planet, or recycling of like all the old military stuff that we won't need anymore because we're all agreeing to do no harm. All of that stuff can get recycled into other technologies. You know, beautiful building methods like 3D printing with hemp, or building with all kinds of natural materials, natural, free energy solutions, and all these things. We just implement them, and you still get to do everything that you love. You get to do it more often. You get to do it in new ways. And it's really that simple. We're just coming together to enable all of the good things that you've always dreamed of to happen. And it's beautiful.
The free energy will be complete. The technology has already been widely available. What you said a bit earlier about the conceptual stuff, with the 3D friction still things going on, moving parts and magnetics, that's base. The higher technology using alchemical metals that turn from solid to liquid to solid to liquid, which have a temporal variance, creating different magnetic fields inside geodesic forms, are free energy at its purest, where a telephone shaped size object can power a city easily, freely, and harmonically with the universe. The frequency technology that will come in, which will allow for printing of plasmatic energetics. So again, with a telephone, it's got a frequency. Every molecule within the telephone has a frequency. Those frequencies can be printed from plasmatic energy or creational energy. They can be manifested via a printer. There is no use of resource. There is simply a reproduction of a frequency which maps to a holographic or a molecular design. So that, again, with what we're thinking about lack and scarcity, is coming from an establishment which has taught us that there is lack and scarcity, when effectively the energy of creation is infinite and always has been, and we are creators. So we can utilize benevolently creational energy to assist and uplift humanity, not utilizing material necessarily that grows on Gaia, but utilizing the energy of creation that actually powers those materials to benefit humanity, which this has been here for quite a while, but lost and hidden because of suppression. So even with the electromagnetic craft, or the propulsion devices, the plasmatic propulsion devices, which take craft and change their electromagnetic frequency, which allows them to levitate and move without inertia. Gravity, the idea of gravity is a lie. The phenomena exists, but the reasoning behind it is a lie. It's electromagnetism and it's static pull, if you will. But these can be, most of the craft that's a UFO isn't. If not all of the craft that are purported to be UFOs aren't. They're just using magnetic propulsion technology or plasmatic drives, interdimensional drives. That is known about here, has been built here for a long time, but it wasn't for humanity. It was for the slave masters to play with. Well, all of this becomes freely open when we choose to unite as opposed to divide. So again, over to you, brother.
Yeah, that was fun. I didn't know about that. So that's fun to see and know. And then, well, the creation of things through, I forget what device you call it, by just kind of programming it to create certain molecules. Yeah.
Plasmatic printers, energetic printers. When we consider, again, most haven't done this, but when you look at the way a molecule is formed, it's ultra high frequency light in a spherical frequency pattern. It's a circular toroidal shape, magnetic field, if you will. And at the center of a magnetic field, there is no magnetics. The center of a toroidal field, the center of an atom, there is no atom. There is the energy of creation that's creating the toroidal shape, or the molecular this has a frequency. It can be recreated. We are creators. We can command creation, but not in this density. So we can utilize technology for those, again, dependent on what level of manifestation is available in the higher octaves for humanity to go into. We can utilize technology, or we can utilize pure intention to physically create what it is that we need. Somebody just said about telepathy, and telepathy, again, many are also aware of telepathy on the emotional level. They can read another's emotions without any connection. They can feel others. It's just not complete yet. It's not full, but telepathy, and everything's connected anyway. So that connection will be enhanced once people let go of the idea that everything isn't connected. So in the concept of humanity, they believe themselves to just have one life, one self, small s, and that they must do all of these things instinctively and instinctually to survive, like primal animals. But they believe themselves to be free, And this isn't true. There's much more to what that individual thinks they are when they look on the larger scale and see that they are not a water molecule. They are the ocean. And every molecule is connected to them and is part of the ocean. With this brings so much more strength, so much more courage, so much more discipline, so much more authority, so much more humility. All of these beautiful balancing words, and the ejection of negative energetics is a repulsion of your brothers and sisters, when surely you should be bringing them to you. And so all that we've been taught and all of this creation that is built on belief is falling. It's collapsing. It's imploding, as are the individual selves. The ideas, the egoic pride, the mockery and scorn doesn't work anymore. It's not bringing the results anymore. It doesn't satisfy anymore. It's all failing. And it's failing because it can't be continued. It ceases to exist. And we go back. We return to a point of grace. And this is one of the keys. This is a return to grace. The fall from grace will be removed, and it never happened. We are returning to grace. Now, I'm not going to go into that as any further than I've just said, because it's not really to be said. But inside all of this is the release of all of the distortions and all of the beliefs and all of the thinking and all of the concepts and all of the limited fear-based mindsets. They must go. And it's the grace in which you release them. It's your path. One is holding on to them as if they're real, and one is releasing them and letting them go. And see what happens. Both ways are right. Both ways work. Both lead you back to the middle. One's more enjoyable than the other. And once you start to realize that, you choose the easiest one all the time.
Yeah, it's really quite fun actually to be watching everything taking place on the planet, and to just to know that we have the ultimate solution, and without any arrogance, you know that that's true if you have arrived there as well. And yeah, it's really quite cool. And just to say to Bapi here, you can message me if you like. I can talk more with you about when GPMS will start in India and connect you with the people sharing it there. And yeah, it's really been fun, Lee, to hop around in the multi-dimensional realm of everything that's taking place, and that all that GPMS can encompass. And anyone that's watched this, I trust that you've had a good time and a few laughs maybe. And yeah, share this video if you wish, of course, and reach out to me if you do want to understand more about what GPMS is all about, and whatever level or whatever way you wish to communicate about it, and if you're curious about how this new reality, or what what the reality that GPMS brings forth, what role you might wish to play, or how you might wish to exist in this reality, or how you might wish to co-create it and bring it into existence for others. And yeah, it's all happening. So many things happening. And at the end of the day, you know, I say the sun sets and it's beautiful. but really, what's happening is that, yeah, there's so many things going on. But really, it's all for us to return to grace, like you said, and to enjoy this earth, enjoy the creation from the earth together, and from there, you know, who knows? You know, we don't have to know what happens next. Maybe you do, but maybe you don't, and that's cool. But what really matters is that every man, woman, and child. What really matters is that every man, woman, and child has comfort and peace and safety, and like you said, 15,000 children dying a day is not okay. You know, that's why we are actively sharing this, and one of the reasons. And yeah, we have all the solutions when we all unite, and we're uniting at GPMS.world. So if you want to add anything else, Lee, thanks so much for coming. I really had a great time.
Thank you, brother, for the conversation. It's been a while since we spoke again, and I enjoy it. And hopefully, you know, we didn't make it into too much that was too far, too philosophical or too metaphysical. We just kept it simple, yet encompassing a large degree of philosophy, but without the philosophical notions, just bringing it into reality and showing simplistically how complex spiritual terminology can be undertaken on a physical choice basis. It can be done without all of the gurus and all of the ideas. It can be done without all of that, or you can do it with all of that. There's no right or wrong way. But ultimately, the pathway is built on trust and faith in yourself, and you must find your truth to be able to trust it. And nobody can give you that. That is an individual exercise. It will be assisted by the divine creators, by your higher self, but it's still an individual exercise that each will undertake on a collective level. Each clearing one section enables another to clear another section. So this is on a divine level, collective level. As each rise, they enable another to rise, and therefore they're working collectively. This isn't about individuals having to be forced to do individual things. Each will do their part in enabling and assisting their brothers and sisters to do their part. Nobody, in the grander scheme of things, everything that everybody does is perfect. It can be no other way. It just changes your perfection. Most people regret and have blame or shame on what they've done, but what they did was perfect. Never accept blame unless you are to blame, and the only one that can blame you is you. Therefore, there is no reason to apologize. You just accept that you didn't know in that moment, and you move on and don't do the same thing again, because that would be non-virtuous. This is very simple. It doesn't need to be difficult. And GPMS is very simple. It doesn't need to be difficult, but many make it more difficult than it needs to be. In releasing that complexity, you will come back to the simplicity. And the choice is whether to be simple now or later. But either way, this is inevitable. The choice of purity is inevitable. The higher choice is going to happen. We are not talking about maybes. We don't talk to maybes. GPMS will happen, it's just when. And Bapi is still asking questions about when GPMS will be. And Bapi has been told many, many times, when humanity chooses it. 50,000 is not a majority choice from humanity. GPMS has not been delayed 2 years. GPMS has not been chosen yet. There's no delay in GPMS. GPMS is all about a choice. When humanity makes the choice to free themselves, GPMS will be there. Until that time, GPMS is building up to that time. So you can text and message every 2 weeks or every week or every day back. When will GPMS be? It will be when the collective of humanity has chosen on a majority level. So, again, not trying to be. I've had many questions. And I love you, brother. I love your keenness and your eagerness. But you've got to understand the basis of this. This is a referendum. This is a vote. Majority rule. There will be a point of virality, but we haven't reached it yet. We are creating the foundation that will shift and move forward when humanity wishes to see freedom instead of slavery. Love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lee. And just quickly, I just remembered the other day I was driving back to this location, and I had this this vision that when I was a teenager, I watched this show at boarding school called Prison Break, where a guy breaks into prison to break his brother out of prison. Okay, and that's kind of what we're doing, you know, whether you see it from like before you incarnated or since you found out about GPMS, we're really just like here with the solution, like the blueprint to break everybody out of a prison reality, which is what the old monetary and legal systems have done. So yeah, I'll just finish with that.
Good way of looking at it, brother. Yeah, the people in the prison cells think outside is fearful and scary. It's not, it's heaven. So we're kicking the walls down and we're breaking the cell doors open. People have still got to walk out of their cells.
Yeah, you guys got to choose. Yeah. So happy days, everybody, and I put the link in the description. And again, if anyone's interested to know more about GPMS, I am 100% available to share and connect. So much love, gratitude, and have a beautiful day, night, and over and out from us, guys. Peace.
Love you all.